Okay, there is one thing I should mention, and you should be aware of. So let's get back to our example with code injection, shellcode injection, and this one. Okay, so we can copy this, and let's go to this folder. Okay, so we have our implant here. So this implant will inject a message box to a notepad. So we need to run notepad. Okay, and when you run it, everything works. Okay, that's cool. But if we double click on this program instead of running it from the console, look what happens. Or actually, let me hit the enter so that you can hear when I run implant.exe. Okay, and this is so this black window popping up on a user screen is something you don't want to have, okay, in your dropper or any malware you are running. We want to get rid of that black window, okay? So let's do it. There are two typical, the easiest, like two methods to do that. One is the simplest one, which basically calls the free console function like this one. So if you compare it with our code injection, source code, the only difference between these two programs is this free console, okay, and it's this call to free console function. That's the only difference. So let's compile this and see what happens. So 08 hiding console, 01 free console, compile. Okay, we compile this. And now let's get back to this one, and now let's start notepad. Okay, and now let's run it again. So our shellcode has popped up and so has run, but there was a slight, like a fraction of second when the free console before the free console was executed. So there was a slight slight fraction of time when the black window popped up, the console window was visible. Okay, let's do it again. Yeah, this one even more visible. So it is not a perfect solution. It is one of the easiest one you can use in your code to hide your black console window. But there is another trick you can use. Okay. So let's open up this trick and see how it's different. And the difference is, again, if you compare, what I'm doing here is instead of main, I created a winMain function. Okay, and why is that? Because I want to tell my compiler that it should compile my program as a GUI program, so as a subsystem Windows. Let me open up the code injection compile batch so you can compare. Okay, so this is the original one when we are compiling our program as a console program, and this one will compile our program as Windows program, or in other words, a GUI program. Okay, and this is not the only one thing we need to do. We need to change. We need to change our source code. So in original, it was a main function, and in a change version, it has to be in winmain, because winmain is a function which the compiler is looking for when it parses the source code of the program it compiles. Okay, so for the GUI programs, you need a winmain. For the console programs, you need main function. Okay, that's the second difference. And of course, running printf in a GUI program doesn't make sense, so you have to get rid of that. Okay, so let's compile that again and see the result. So compile. Okay, we have our implant. Now let's start Notepad again, and let's go back to hide the GUI trick. Now I set my cursor on implant.exe and I hit enter. And as you can see, there was no window pop-up. Okay, once again. All right, so our payload got executed, but there was no console black window popping up on the end user desktop, and this is what we actually want. Okay, so this is one of the simplest tricks you can use in your malware when you are developing your malware.